Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is the show where we pick a movie and discuss it every week, just like a book club. On today's show, we're covering the crime thriller Prisoners. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 2013, Prisoners was directed by Denis Villeneuve and stars Hugh Jackman, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Paul Dano. Keller Dover is facing every parent's worst nightmare. His 6-year-old daughter, Anna, is missing, together with her young friend, Joy, and as minutes turn into hours, panic sets in. The only lead is a dilapidated RV that had earlier been parked on their street. It is currently ranked 157 on IMDb's Top 250 and has a 4.3 on Letterboxd and is ranked number 149 on its Top 250. The film was nominated for 1 Academy Award for Best Cinematography. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for this movie. We are going to be talking about some pretty major spoilers in this movie, and I'll just say it right now, like I had an inkling and kind of a little bit of foreknowledge on what the ending was, and it was still a roller coaster. So
yeah,
go in as blind as you can with this movie. So pause it here, go watch it, then come back. We'll give another warning before we give away anything. If you haven't seen the film yet, obviously, like I just said, go watch it. Stay tuned to the end of the show, though, because we'll talk about what movie we're covering next week, and it is related to a movie releasing this year in 2024. So It's going to be definitely worth it a while to see what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, Kevin. So Prisoners was my pick this week.
Yes.
And honestly,
wait, I'll ask you, why did you want to pick Prisoners?
Well, thank you very much for asking, Kevin.
You're very welcome.
Very much appreciate that. This is a movie that I had always seen on Netflix. It was always in like the available movies in the thrillers section, and I had also like the sequence of like when they're running through the street trying to find him initially is like seared into my memory because it was just like it would always autoplay, right? And so I really wanted to check this movie out for a long time, and then I saw that a lot of people. Is something wrong?
No, I'm laughing because now it's not on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That was just a funny moment. I've been seeing it all on Netflix. I'm like, it's not on Netflix anymore.
I'm not cutting that out.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it used to always be on Netflix.
Yeah.
As Kevin was saying. But recently I'd seen a lot of people were giving it high praise, and it was showing up in a lot of these 250 lists. And so when it became time to do a movie club, I was like, we're gonna watch Prisoners at some point, and finally checked it out. And so, Kevin, you said that you had already seen this movie before.
Correct. Yes.
So this was my first time watching the movie. And after first watching, man, this movie is good.
It's a roller coaster of emotions, rides, and it doesn't get any better than this, I feel like.
It is a roller coaster not only of emotion and kind of like thriller qualities. It is like
you feel drained afterwards. Like emotionally, physically, you're sitting there you're like, holy crap. And you just have to sit there and just like marinate in your chair and just be like, what the hell did I just watch? But it was damn good.
And there's some really, really interesting themes and kind of things that I walked away from this movie kind of picking up on that I'm really interested to see if you also found something similar in it.
Gotcha.
But let's go ahead. I want to talk first here, and obviously it sounds like you really like the movie too. So we can get that out of the way, kind of initial thoughts. From this point on, again, spoiler warning. We are going to be spoiling the film, so do not go further if you haven't seen this movie.
Yes.
I do want to talk about the performances first, because
Fantastic.
in a lot of critic reviews from when this movie came out, they were not so hot on the reviews. The performances, I thought they were fantastic here.
Yeah. Oh man, it's two dads being worried, and you feel for them every single time that they get a lead, but it's not what they want it to be, if that makes sense. And it's heart tears, heart breaks. Oh my gosh, they found something, but it's not what they want, and you can feel that. Even though, like, even the bathroom scene, the hostage scene, it's you feel Hugh's anger when he's just wailing on this person because it's his daughter and Gyllenhaal's daughter as well, but he came up from a different background. I feel like in this movie, and he kind of grittier kind of a person, so he wants to know everything, where Jake is more, hey, let's ask him questions. It's not like
Doing his
physical.
job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's a different background. But I love how they have these two different backgrounds, because some people are like Jake and some people are like Hugh.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. In many different ways, they are prisoners to their
Yep.
states of being, which is one of the great themes of this. Yeah, fantastic. Also, one of my favorite actors working today, Paul Dano, is incredible in this movie. He played Alex, the one who drives the RV.
Yes. Yeah.
Is then taken hostage. I knew from the beginning of this movie who the bad person was.
See, I didn't, because I kind of forgot. So,
which is good, you know. So from point one of the movie, from beginning of the movie, I was sympathetic towards him the entire time.
Yeah.
I didn't know the story behind him. I just knew that he wasn't the actual guy.
Yeah.
And so I felt horrible for him the entire time.
Yeah.
But then it comes back to the point that he was a kidnapped kid.
Yep.
And then in this cruel twist of fate, Hugh Jackman becomes essentially what Melissa Leo was in this movie to him again.
Yeah.
And again, he's a prisoner. It's absolutely fantastic. He is incredible, playing someone who is so, like, we're given the idea that he's like mentally disabled, handicapped, or I don't know the exact terminology, but like he has the IQ of like a 10-year-old, essentially, is what they kind of they tell us. But at first we just think that it's some sort of, disability, handicap,
or something like that too.
But it's actually because of the whatever drugs
that
he's been given, and that liquid or whatever, which we don't know, we never know what it is, which is fantastic,
and that's okay.
And so again, automatically you just feel for this guy. You may feel upset at first, like Hugh does. He's for all intents, he's a creepy looking guy.
Yeah,
I mean, he fits the profile of what many people would say a predator looks like.
Yep.
Which is by design, obviously. But it is so well done in the way that they kind of portray him. But then he just opens this, like, by being closed off, he's opening up emotionally in a weird, kind of really profound way.
In a different way. Because some people open up that way other than just you and I being ourselves. Some people do it through art or movies that they like to watch, and that's perfectly okay. But he's not supposed to be creepy in this movie, but he is very creepy because of what has happened to him in the past.
And as the movie goes on, he gets less creepy.
Yes, because you understand what he's been going through and how he came about to be this person. And he's so good as I don't want to call him like not a con killer, but like a protagonist that's not really the protagonist, if that makes sense, right?
Sure, I get what you're going at. I know I wouldn't know what the actual term is off the top of my head.
Yeah,
but he's definitely more protagonistic than antagonistic. And if anything, our main character is an antagonist.
Yeah,
which is crazy. It's crazy to see Hugh Jackman in a role like that.
Yeah, and oh man, the two dads do an amazing job. I know we already talked about that.
Him and Terrence Howard, yeah.
But they're just so good. That's why. And he's just there's so many good things about this movie, and I don't want to talk about it because of how good this movie is, because I don't want to spoil anything. But even did you notice? I'm going to talk about the start and the end of the movie, just to give you context. But when the girls go missing for the first time, do you remember what they were doing? Why they went outside?
Not off the top of my head right now, but I know as soon as you say it, it's going to come back to me.
They were going to try to find their whistle.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, and then at the end of the movie, that whistle
He's in the
saves.
hole.
Yeah, well,
Well, we don't
that's
know because the way that movie ends, it ends perfectly.
yeah,
We
that's
don't know if
true.
he'll be saved or not.
But
He may bleed out.
but he has to be.
It's
He
so
has to
good.
be, and that's what's great about this movie because you don't know.
Yep. And a lot of people think that's upsetting. I don't care. It's
No.
fantastic.
Uh-uh.
But I do kind of want to talk. I guess before we get into the themes, because I do really want to have a cool conversation on that.
Mhm.
Cool is probably the wrong word. The cinematography of this movie. This movie is gorgeous.
Absolutely. Yep.
Not like in like colors and vivid.
No.
This movie is dark and oppressing, grungy. But it's shot by Roger Deakins, who is one of the best living cinematographers. Same guy who did Blade Runner 2049 and 1917 and several other films, Skyfall included. Like he like one of the best living cinematographers. And this movie is fantastic. Even in the beginning, the slow shot, the zoom out of the hunting sequence.
Yes.
And then when Hugh Jackman and his son are in the car and you see the deer's body in the trunk through the glass, inspired. It's fantastic. I know there's a YouTuber out there. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he does like every beautiful shot or beautiful shots from. And this movie is one of those ones where I can easily see it being a video. I don't know if he actually made one for it yet, but absolutely gorgeous movie. I mean, this isn't one that has like a lot of production design. I mean, because you're just shooting it in locations, but the building where they keep Alex hostage is horrifying.
Yeah.
Because those buildings are everywhere. Like in that part of the country, they are everywhere. And you don't know who's in there. You can't just walk in because either it'll be a homeless person in there who will shank you, or it'll be a serial killer, or a really angry Hugh Jackman. You know, like it's absolutely horrifying to think that there's so many of those abandoned buildings around us, and we don't know what's going on there. It's kind of crazy.
Exactly. But it's shot like how you were saying about the buildings. Like we could go somewhere where we live and see those kind of exact same buildings and be like, damn. And they just put it out there because that's what we're I don't want to say comfortable seeing, but that's what we see on a daily basis.
What we're used to.
And then we can relate to it a little bit as well. Yeah. Like their houses are at the edge of a forest pretty much and that's what a lot of houses are in like mid east of America. They're behind there's something behind the house like a forest, and it makes it so relatable, this movie. And that's what I think kind of I gravitated towards watching this. I'm like, this could happen like on the news. Like hopefully not. I never want this to happen to anybody, no matter how old, young, but this can pop up on the news and I would be like, yeah, that's that. I can see that house and everything behind it. But this movie's just, it's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
And it's beautiful in how normal it looks, and it's unsettling because of how normal it looks, and that's I think that's what's really strong about it. But that does kind of lead me. I do want to start talking about some of the things in this movie that I actually kind of walked away from as far as like themes wise. So there are a lot of things you could walk away this from. Obviously, prisoners, like being a prisoner to certain parts of yourself, certain things makes sense. The idea of like mazes are a big part of this movie. Being trapped in a maze. However, the biggest one that I walked away from is that this is a religious movie, and not in a way that is like pro-religious or anti-religious. It just has a lot of religion in its themes, and it's really interesting. So this is a huge spoiler for the movie. So again, spoiler alert. But I forget her name.
The older
Holly.
lady.
Holly.
Yeah.
She and her husband used to they lost a child. They lost their child, and in so doing, they blamed God for it, which is a total normal thing that people do. And but then the not normal part is then going and taking other people's children to specifically make them lose their faith, which I don't agree with making anti-religious people villains in movies, but it's totally understandable here. Like obviously it's a horrible thing that they're doing, but like it's understandable. And then in so doing, they want to basically make demons out of people like Hugh Jackman to reduce them to their most primal and in some essences evil elements, right? To show that no one is truly good, and no one, that's a really fascinating idea.
And
but also,
how it plays out in the movie, though, you get to see it kind of go step by step how it's happening as well. First, we get to see how angry he is, but then once you know the backstory of Holly, then you're like, oh, this, like this. Sorry for cussing, but like this bitch, like she's just doing it so other people lose their faith, but some patience, God, some people don't lose faith; they actually gain faith from it, and you can see that in some people like Jake Gyllenhaal's character. So, but you see it digress in Hugh's character.
Yeah, and it's actually funny that you bring up Jake Gyllenhaal's character because he is a big part of that as well. And I do want to credit filmcolossus.com, which I was reading into. They have like an explained thing where they explain a lot of the ideas in the film, and they do bring this idea up that Jake Gyllenhaal's character's name is Loki.
Yeah.
Who is a Norse god.
Yep. Of trickster, right? Trickery?
Trickster god, yeah. So I'm going to read this kind of verbatim here. The idea, so regarding Christianity, we hear the Lord's Prayer, when, like Our Father. We see many crosses. Characters pray. They invoke God's name. Keller keeps Alex in a bottle that's similar to a confession box. Or in a box, sorry, not a bottle. That whole torture subplot is a twisted form of repentance. But there's also faith in God, faith in the police, and faith in yourself. So when they say faith in police, keep in mind that that Loki is the detective. This means that the Dovers and the Birches, who are religious people, two very Christian characters, right, who are now placing their faith in a character who is not named after a Christian character, is named after a Norse god.
Yeah.
It is a character who wears a Masonic ring, a character who talks about zodiac signs, has astrological symbols tattooed on his hands, and on his neck is a star that is some sort of pagan or non-Christian religion. These are two very Christian characters who are dependent on Loki, a character symbolizing non-Christian religion.
Interesting.
Obviously, a lot of the film is then full of Christian iconography and references. There's the part where, Gyllenhaal's going through the basement and sees like the statue of the Virgin Mary. There's the priest who takes in the dead body.
Yep.
For so to speak. And then what's it mean that Keller or Hugh Jackman constantly prays to God to save him, yet Loki is the one that's there? Yeah. Does Loki represent a spirituality beyond Christianity or the sum of other religions? Like, there's no definitive answer here. It's an unsolvable puzzle. It's a maze without an exit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I am reading that like pretty much verbatim from this website. It is a really great website that I've been kind of looking more into, called Film Colossus. Fantastic website. I'd never heard of them before today. So if you want to go check them out, definitely worth checking out. They go very much into detail on the whole movie. But it does raise some really interesting ideas that this movie tries to present. There's a lot going on here. It really does. With its symbols and its religious meaning. But then also you have the idea of the maze, right? All these characters are trapped in this maze, essentially, trying to find these kids. That's full of dead ends. Alex is a dead end. The guy that keeps the snakes in those boxes, he is also a dead end. Everything kind of ends up being a dead end in this movie, and that's indicative of this kind of maze idea. And it is, I think it's very well done, and I think you do too. I think a lot of critics really missed it. It's one of the rare times that I do think that the critics really didn't see the light on this one.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering out of my own mind, do critics go back and rewatch movies that they have?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And like, I want to.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I was going to say I want to see what their reviews are now, like nowadays, and then have them relate to it back when they first watched it, because that would be very interesting to see.
There are definitely a lot of times where they do have a like an image to uphold, right? Or like a status to uphold. So there is a lot of the times where they don't back down. They stay with it, even though or they just don't revisit it, don't rewatch it, right? It happens all the time.
Yeah.
There are some who do go back and rewatch things, and I do think that it's one of the faults of early criticism in film. One of the faults of people like my heroes, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, right? They were very steadfast in what they thought, and they would not change their opinion. There's only one or two times I can think of with Roger Ebert where he changed his opinion. And, but I think a lot now, like I fully realize, like we just did our live stream and we talked about The Martian. The Martian was a movie that I used to not like, but now kind of coming at it with more experience and more kind of films that I've seen, I had a better appreciation for it.
Well,
so like opinions change.
Like last week was Casablanca, correct? Yeah, I could not finish that movie, but then we started watching movies for the top 250, and I could finish that movie in one sitting and enjoyed the whole thing. So, and it's just I don't know, maybe getting my mind correct to the period that it was happening at, but it's also just exposing myself to more movies that make it more sense, if that makes sense for me.
Sure, yeah, and we actually talked about this at a game night we had a couple days ago. Like Interstellar's original critic reviews were not very good, and then over time it just became a hit, like a huge, like even critics that didn't like it now are like, yeah, you know what, I was wrong.
Yeah,
because first it is sometimes hard to watch on a first watch what you truly think of something, and it's something that I struggle with, and I definitely think I know you struggle with as well. Like there's movies like I'll write the review for it, and then I'm like, it was better than I thought, or it was worse. But like sometimes there's laziness, and I don't want to go in there and edit it. But no, I do think that this movie is one that they definitely missed the park on. I don't think that very often at all. I usually think critics are very much on point and correct in their assessments. Not this time. I think a 70 is too low. And I think that this definitely deserved more award season attention. I do want to read some of those reviews and figure out why people weren't as much into it. I do remember seeing one person said that Hugh Jackman just got annoying as the movie went on because of how it was just all him screaming and being intimidating. That's what a dad does. It's just it's so frustrating. Anyhow, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, from the themes to the performances. Visually, this movie is gorgeous. This is one of those movies that I feel like not a lot of people have seen outside of the kind of movie circles. And it's one of those ones that I'm going to recommend for sure. Whenever someone says hey, what should I watch? Watch Prisoners. 100%.
Yeah, especially if they're into I don't want to say a murder mystery, but it's like a mystery thriller movie. This is a perfect movie for people who are looking for that.
Arguably, a lot of people do. A lot of people like these kinds of movies, so they should be. I would be remiss though if I didn't talk about the only thing in this movie that I do think not makes it suffer really, but does hurt it occasionally, and I do think is its pacing. There are a couple of moments where the movie gets a little too slow, but then
it ramps right back up.
It's these moments where things are quiet, where things are just seething and bubbling, and then eventually it boils over and becomes this giant moment. And it is by design. I could say maybe you have one too many of those sequences where it's just quiet and then leads up to something. They're great, but maybe there's one or two too many, and maybe they could have trimmed it a little bit. I'm not gonna say the movie's too long. I was riveted the entire time. Yeah, but I do think that the pacing suffers just a little bit, especially in the second act. The first and third acts are near flawless, I would say. Second act is it does kind of extend itself just a little bit in too many areas. I think that the red herring of David Dastmalchian's character, the guy who has all the mazes and the snakes in his boxes, maybe could have been written out, but it is important to the story. So it's like it's one of those situations where like the pacing and like the length does hurt it just a little bit, but I don't know what I would take out.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Everything has its place in
A
this
purpose.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it hurts the movie a lot. It's just
No.
enough that I do have to. I do feel like I have to, say
Knock it down.
that it was there. Yeah.
hmm
Okay, and that's going to bring us to the end of this video, though, Kevin. So since this was my pick, I'll go ahead and go first this week. I thought that Prisoners is a fantastic film that does have an occasional misstep in its pacing, but triumphs due to a genuine mystery, its wonderful symbolism and meanings, and its incredible performances. And because of that, I gave the movie a 95 out of 100, and it is the newest entry on my top 150 films that remind me why I love film.
Nice. Very
This is a movie.
nice.
This is a dark movie, but I will watch it again.
Yeah, because of how good the performances are and what happens in this movie, and that's why I love this movie as well. The acting in this movie is superb. The cinematography is fantastic in this movie, and the twists and turns and the highs and the lows are they're there, and you're buckled in, strapped in for the ride the entire time. I gave this 97 out of 100 because it is just that good of a movie, and I will be rewatching this again.
So the question now falls to you. What do you think of Prisoners? We'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section, but just be careful not to spoil it for anyone. That would be great. If you just don't want to spoil it for anyone, that would be a bad time. But next week we'll be covering the action drama, I guess you could say historical, even though it's not really accurate, Gladiator. So we will be watching that next week in preparation for Gladiator 2 coming out later this year. And that's going to bring us to the end. So thank you so much for watching. We do have this show, Movie Club, that goes live every Friday at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So next week, again, Gladiator. So make sure you're subscribed so you get a notification when that goes live. And of course, we have our weekly live stream every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we do movie news, reviews, and so much more, like the Wheel of Fate, which we love doing.
Yep.
But again, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, make sure to keep those eyes on the screen.